Manga are outselling comics. And this is why. Lately, there's been this debate online around the fact that manga have won over comics in sales in the latest years. Starting from the example of One Piece, that has surpassed a few years ago both Batman and Spider-Man in overall sales, with more than 500 million copies sold since its first release in 1997. And now Superman is probably next, with its overall 600 million copies sold in its history. With this video today, I'm gonna try to explain some reasons from a point of view to this phenomenon. And then I'm going to try to give you a few suggestions on how to get into comics if you're not, because in case, you're missing out on a lot of incredible stuff. So one very important reason to start off is appeal. But let me explain. Who doesn't love Batman or Iron Man or Spidey in the first place? How can I say that comics have an appeal related issue? The thing is with how the media, respectively manga and comics, are advertised and marketed to the general public through their animated/directed counterparts. Whereas manga most of the times get adapted into anime with time, and thus people can obsess over them through animated TV series, most of the MCU and the DC Comics movies follow their own continuity. They don't serve as real adaptation of the related comic books, except in a few cases. If you think about the two movies involving Miles Morales, not only they showcase incredible animation techniques, but they also serve as a very respectful and appreciable tribute to the comics that created the Spider-Verse. But apart from that, generally speaking, Marvel and DC movies tend to be their own thing, which is not necessarily a negative. But since they stand on their own, there's no actual reason for most of the general public to go buy comics to see how the story goes on. Although there would be obviously reasons to read them just to see how the original stories concerning determinate characters were written, or how they're being written now. Cause, you see, here's another problem. Reading comics is difficult, to say the least. And not because you read from right to left, that's manga's problem. But before I explain why, you could take a moment to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. The wide majority of the people watching my videos are not subscribed, and while it costs you literally nothing, it helps me a lot. I make videos about manga, anime, animation, narrative in general, whatever I feel like honestly, so feel free to check the channel out. By the way, back to the topic. Comics are difficult to get into because of runs, continuity, and reiterations of characters. You might not even understand how to get into a superhero's journeys, because on the issue you might read number 1, but it wouldn't be a very comprehensible beginning, or on the other hand, you might not see a number 1 on the cover, but it would be a perfect starting point. The thing is, when you want to read a manga series, you just start from the first volume. You know that that author has written that story, and that's all. You want to read Jujutsu Kaisen? Good, start from number 1 and then keep on going. You want to start with the anime? Good for you. Then you can pick up the manga at the point the anime is not adapted yet. Pretty simple and clean. There are obviously a few exceptions in which a manga saga is split into more series, like for example GTO or JoJo. But still nothing a good old page and fandom can solve. On the other hand, think about it like that. Spider-Man was created by Stan Lee in 1962. Do you think that it's the same story that's been running in the comics since then? Well, if Stan Lee was Eiichiro Oda, presumably yes, but the answer is no. Also because at the same time he was busy alongside Steve Ditko and Jack Kirby creating the majority of the other heroes you know, like the X-Men, Iron Man, Thor, the Hulk, even Silver Surfer, one of my personal favorites. So what happens instead in comics is that after a hero is created by an author, and that works like that both for Marvel and DC, more runs follow one another, coordinated by different authors and artists. And from time to time, because of important events that happen in its continuity, or simply because the creative direction decided so, the words reset, and a new starting point is created for fans to read. Imagine superheroes like blank canvas. Each one has some traits that are commonly acknowledged, and sometimes even those can be subverted. But every author and every artist that works on a specific run with their ideas and stories create their personal interpretation of the character. the struggles he goes through, and so on. And there can also be multiple versions of the same hero running at the same time, like Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man, or Batman and Detective Comics, sometimes somehow tied and sometimes completely on their own. And yeah, what I just told you might seem complex and confusing, but the problems don't stop here, because the difference between the two media is also a matter of accessibility. Along with the fact that in the last 20 plus years manga have been subject to a lot of piracy, if you want to read anything published by Shueisha in a legit way, the Manga Plus app is there for you. Free and very easy to use, up to date with the new weekly or monthly releases. Obviously, you can't read the majority of the chapters in a limited number of times, but that's pretty obvious if you ask me. On the other end, the only app that exists for comic books is Marvel Unlimited, and it takes a monthly subscription to use it. And at the same time, comics are pretty expensive in general, especially because of format, colored pages, type of paper. That's not to say that manga are cheap, but to put it in perspective, $10 for 200 pages versus $10 for 60 pages. Yeah, it's just like that. But regardless of prices, difficulty to get into the medium, or any other reason that could prevent you from reading comics, I can assure you that you're missing out on a lot. So my suggestion to get into comics would simply be read. There are a lot of stories or runs related to some superheroes that have become classics with time. Just search for that specific hero online and you'll find out. And some volumes are self-contained, so they can be a perfect starting point. For example, a good one for Batman would be Miller's Year One, or The Long Halloween by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. For Superman, you could go with All-Star Superman, one of the biggest classics in Superman's production, or maybe with John Byrne's run. A good starting point for Spider-Man could be Coming Home by Straczynski, which is a volume that starts his run, with very iconic chapters and stories, or maybe Stan Lee's original one. One very cool and appreciated one is Michelini's one, in which Venom is introduced and incredible stories like Kraven's Last Stand take place. About recent runs, I highly recommend Chip Zdarsky's Daredevil, and Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk. And if you want something really fresh and highly recommended that's ongoing precisely now with only a few issues to catch up with, check the Ultimate project created by Hickman. Anyway, if you want to read the current regular series of a specific character, ask on subreddit's suggestions and there will be plenty of fans glad to help you. And if you don't understand everything the first time you pick up an issue, don't bother too much and just try to understand if you're enjoying what you're reading overall. Comics can be complex to get into, but have much more to offer than you could think. Amazing characters, heartfelt stories, and an incredibly vast subculture to explore. I hope this video of mine was at the very least a good incentive to give comics a go, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions left about the topic, or if you want to share your experience or taste in comic books, the comments are here for that. And with that, the video is over. See you soon, guys.